Hey, listen folks, we got a brand new Merfolk deck and we're going to talk about it today. Listen man, you remember Street Fighter 4? Well, when it came out in like 2008, there was just a ton of talk about game balance. You know, Sagat was an S tier character, he was a noob trap. And Vega, my boy, my favorite Street Fighter, was like D tier. But you know what man, the developers knew that. The game wasn't designed to be perfectly balanced. I feel like the Merfolk are like D tier and Commander. You got dragons, demons, elves, they're S tier and A tier, while Merfolk are the jobbers that get beat up to make the S tier guys look good. Well, now we have Explorers of the Deep. This new Ixalan precon has some interesting reprints. Chief among them is Branching Evolution. 2 and a green for an enchantment. If one or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. Hey, look man, that's Ojer Kadzlem in the art, dude. Either that or the Monarch from Venture Brothers, I'm not sure. This is an $18 reprint and an excellent card in a +1/+1 counters deck. It's kind of emblematic of what this deck wants to do. Well, about half of it. The other half is Merfolk Tribal and has a bunch of Merfolk staples. I'm kind of a big fan of this card, man. You got Sviloon of Sea and Sky. 1 blue for a legendary creature, Murog God. It's a 3/4. Sviloon of Sea and Sky has indestructible as long as you control at least 2 other Merfolks. Whenever this idiot attacks, draw a card. Other Merfolk you control have Ward 1. I pulled a bunch of these from Modern Horizons 2 boxes, and despite it being a 75-cent card, Sviloon is an interesting and competent Merfolk commander and included in this deck. You also have the old Emperor out here, Emperor Mikhail Gorbachev out here. 1 blue for a legendary creature, Merfolk Noble. It's a 3/3. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast Merfolk spells from the top of your library. Whenever you cast a Merfolk spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a little Merfolk token. Listen man, I don't understand why this guy is riding a horse under the water. It doesn't make any sense. How the heck does the horse have hooves, man? How is he staying on the horse? Why does he want to, man? He can swim. Come on. These are the important questions in a Merfolk deck. Now wait a second, dude. Before we get into the main commander, I want to talk about this guy for a second. You got Zola Toak, the Smiling Flood. 4 green and a blue for a legendary creature, Salamander Serpent. Whenever this guy, the Smiling Flood, enters the battlefield or attacks, put a flood counter on target land. That land is an island in addition to its other types for as long as it has a flood counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, untap each permanent you control with a counter on it. Read that again, man. Untap each permanent with a counter on it. Any kind of counter. Charge counter, like Ever-Flowing Chalice, you know what I mean? That's going to be awesome in a Zola Toak deck. I think you can build a really mean deck around this guy. He's not a Merfolk, so he's ideal just to pull out of the precon and build around him as his own commander. Now the face commander is Hackbal of the Surging Soul, dude. Look at that Surging Soul. Let's see what this guy brings to the table. 2 green and a blue for a legendary creature, Merfolk Scout. It's a 3/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each Merfolk creature you control explores. Whenever Hackbal of the Surging Soul attacks, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you don't, draw a card. This is a Merfolk enabler. You're drawing cards, you're getting lands, you're exploring out there, dude. That's what you want to be doing, exploring all the mushrooms and dark holes in the universe, brother. This does a ton for 4 mana. It's kind of a landfall enabler as well. Now there are a couple new cards, but I wanted to highlight the Deeproot Historian here. This works really well with Hackbal. You're going to be drawing lands with the Explore ability, and you have the option to put the revealed Merfolk into the graveyard. As the board state gets more and more cluttered with little Merfolk, you'll be exploring 4 or 5 times, and stuff gets silly at that point. You'll have a few extra lands to pitch to the Retrace ability. So how would I go about upgrading this precon? That's why you're here, right? You're not here to hear why I think Merfolk suck. Well, I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to tell you why right now. Merfolk have the same issues as Aquaman, which is a really lame name for a superhero. You know what I'm saying? Call him Wet Man, call him Damp Fella. That's a good name. Well, if there isn't anything going on in the water, then these guys are useless. You know, the villagers say, watch out, those Merfolk are deadly. You know, they're really going to muck up your face, dude. Well, what if I stay on the land? You know, well, then they can't touch you. You know, air is poison to Merfolk. Alright, so listen, how would I go about upgrading this deck? Well, there are plenty of Merfolk, and some that are even good. Decks like this rely on a lot of little guys that work well together to get your creatures bigger and get your guys through. Like the Vodalian Hex Catcher, man. This is a new one out of Dominaria United, although I guess that was a year ago now. So the Vodalian Hex Catcher is 1 in a blue creature, Merfolk Wizard. It's a 1/1 with flash. Other Merfolk you control get +1/+1. Lots of little lords, might as well stick this one in. Sacrifice a Merfolk, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. Incredibly useful. Say you have a big board state set up and somebody casts a board wipe, right? Well, sacrifice 3 or 4 of your guys, or maybe 2, or maybe just 1, counter that spell. and she says, "You're just one more pollutant to be removed from the sea." This Merfolk has an environmental message for all you polluters out there. I'm looking at you, Joe Rogan, polluting everybody up with athletic greens. I did want to mention the true name Nemesis as well. 1 blue for a creature Merfolk rogue. It's a 3/1. As it enters the battlefield, choose a player. This guy has protection from the chosen player. This made a big splash in 2011, but it's only a couple bucks right now. Oh yeah, Wizards, you're too cowardly to reprint the ultimate Chad card in a precon. The ultimate Lord of Atlantis, dude. Nobody wants to recognize this guy's lordship over Atlanta, Georgia, brother. He was here first. How about Theta Aquisitor? 1 blue for a legendary creature, Merfolk rogue. It's a 2/2 with Island Walk. Whenever Theta Aquisitor deals combat damage to a player, search that player's library for an artifact card and exile it. That player shuffles. Until the end of turn, you may play that card. She's out there acquisitizing all the soul rings, buddy. Fantastic card. It's never been reprinted and is only about $5. Now listen, I don't know if I would necessarily put this card in the deck, but you got Empress Galina. She's a Merfolk. 3 blue for a legendary creature, Merfolk Noble. It's a 1/3. Has blue tap, gain control of target legendary permanent. This sweet old legend has had a couple reprints, including this god-awful left-hand version. This is just a threat, dude. If you put this out there, every commander player is going to try to remove it as soon as possible. Now, Zola Toak also makes islands, dude, but I pull him out and stick this guy right in there. If you're looking for island walkers, the Tide Shaper makes stuff islands, man. And it is an island in addition to its other types, it just makes it an island. So you can target that 3-color deck with only one source of a particular color, hope to trip them up a little bit, and then bang in. And listen, we do have a +1/+1 counter theme in the deck, and the exploration does that as well. We talked about branching evolution, and Hardened Scales returns as well. May as well stick in Kami of Whispered Hopes and Ozolith the Shattered Spire. There are other more expensive cards that do similar stuff, but let's not go nuts, dude. I just did a $30 upgrade. I do want to save room for some landfall effects. You got Green Sleeves out there. He's got protection from Wizards of the Coast, man. That's why it's $7. He's creating badgers out there. That's also good. You can sit around the table with your buddies. You can meme a little bit. You know, you can say, "Oh, I got a badger in my pants, bro. Oh, look, there's a badger eating your roommate's cheese in the refrigerator." Then you have Lotus Cobra. It's always a good idea, man. But it may be hard to take advantage of the mana if the land enters with your commander's ability, as that happens via combat. You can certainly cast instants with it or use activated abilities. Then you have some landfall staples like Avenger of Zendikar, Rampaging Baloths, Scoot Swarm. They're all staples. AC Tyrant of the Gyrant is a fantastic card in landfall decks, but it's also about $15. This guy needs a reprint, man. It's prohibitively pricey, but it's also pretty great. Then you got the old tireless provisioner out there, still pretty good to ramp up your mana production. Always a solid include, man. She's out there, she's tireless, buddy. Yeah, man, I've done Merfolk before. I did a video on Mahale, and the power of Merfolk is the little things they're able to do. Pumping creatures, making them unblockable, giving them island walk, creating islands, stuff like that. It's an interesting creature type to play with, man. Hackbal is a nice addition to the pantheon of Merfolk commanders. Fun little build around, maybe not as powerful as the other precons, but a neat deck to upgrade. Once this deck gets going with the way I upgraded it for $30, man, it's not bad at all. It hums, dude. But before I sign off, I wanted to thank all my kind supporters like my dude Tyler. Such a nice dude. All you guys are champs, and I appreciate y'all. I appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and if you're feeling generous, feel free to buy me a coffee at the link in the description. Nicky G from Better Commander, signing off.